What if I told you that there is a character in the Bible who has no father, no mother, no genealogy, no beginning, and no end? It seems impossible, but this enigmatic figure appears out of nowhere, blesses Abraham, receives the tithe, and simply disappears. His name? Melchizedek, a mysterious priest who could completely change the way you understand Jesus Christ. Could Melchizedek be a manifestation of Christ in the Old Testament? What does his eternal priesthood mean? And how could this secret hidden in the scriptures reveal the future of humanity? Stay until the end, because this story might be one of the most impactful you've ever heard. In ancient times, the land was a scene of fierce disputes, kingdoms rising and falling under the sword and power. It was an era of warriors and ruthless kings, and among them, 9 monarchs waged a war of epic proportions. On one side, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, led a tyrannical coalition. On the other, 5 kings, including the rulers of Sodom and Gomorrah, sought to free themselves from his oppression. The conflict was not only territorial, but a struggle for supremacy and control of the region's vast resources. Amidst this whirlwind of battles, Lot, Abraham's nephew, was captured, becoming a prisoner in the midst of the devastation. It was then that Abraham, a simple patriarch without a kingdom of his own, surprised the world. Armed only with his trained servants, he launched a daring offensive against the dominating kings, freeing Lot and securing an unexpected victory. His name became legendary, a feared and respected force. Abraham's triumph not only reversed the fate of Sodom, but also established his authority as a divinely favored leader. And it is in this moment of glory that a character emerges, shrouded in absolute mystery. Melchizedek, king of Salem and priest of the Most High God. Without warning, without any recorded lineage, and without any narrative introduction, he appears before Abraham, bringing bread and wine. A detail that seems simple, but carries profound and prophetic symbolism, pointing to something far beyond his time. Who was this king? Where did his priestly authority come from, if the law of Moses had not yet existed? What is most impressive is that the Bible, a book meticulously concerned with genealogies, does not mention his origin. There is no record of his father, mother, or descendants. He simply appears, performs his role, and vanishes from historical narratives. Yet his presence and title hide secrets that challenge human understanding and point to a reality much greater. The very name Melchizedek reveals something extraordinary. In Hebrew, Melchizedek means king of righteousness. But righteousness in what sense? The title was not just a recognition of his conduct, but a declaration of his nature. In biblical culture, righteousness is directly linked to the character of God, not simply to the application of human laws. Melchizedek did not only rule a people, but represented a righteousness that came from the Most High himself. His authority was unique, independent of the known dynasties, as if it had been established from time immemorial. In addition to being the King of Righteousness, he is also called the King of Peace, because he ruled Salem, a name that is directly related to the Hebrew word shalom, meaning peace. This raises an intriguing question. What city was this? The Jerusalem we know did not yet exist as the capital of Israel. However, Salem was already a kingdom, and Melchizedek reigned over it before any Israelite occupation. This is one of the first biblical mentions of a location that would later become the spiritual epicenter of the world. But what does this mean? If Jerusalem is called the city of God in the scriptures, and Melchizedek was already ruling this land long before David or Solomon, then his presence there cannot be merely casual. The Bible points out that Jerusalem would be the place where Christ would reign, where the temple would be built, and where the divine plan would unfold. Therefore, Melchizedek's reign was not just an isolated event, but a shadow of something greater yet to come. What does this connection between Melchizedek and Jerusalem really indicate? And why did a man who did not belong to any known lineage possess such powerful titles? After the surprising victory over the invading kings, Abraham returns triumphant. He could have taken the spoils of war, he could have claimed the title of a great conqueror, but something unexpected happens. Before Melchizedek, the king of Salem and priest of the Most High God, Abraham bows in a gesture of deep recognition and gives him 1/10 of everything. This moment is absolutely revolutionary and hides a theological significance that transcends even the history of Israel. The law of Moses did not even exist yet. The Levitical system of priests and tithes was still centuries away. And yet, Abraham, the patriarch of faith, chooses to voluntarily give 1/10 of his goods to a mysterious king-priest. What does this mean? It reveals that Melchizedek possessed spiritual authority superior to that of Abraham himself. The father of faith, the one who would receive God's promises and generate the lineage of the chosen people, submits to a priest who was not his descendant, nor from any known tribe. And this changes everything. If Abraham recognizes that Melchizedek is greater, then the entire priesthood that would follow, including the Levites, descendants of Abraham, was already inferior to this mysterious priestly order. The Levitical priesthood would come based on the law, but the priesthood of Melchizedek existed before the law and operated directly under an eternal and divine covenant. This means that the priestly system of Israel was not the pinnacle of divine revelation, but only a shadow of something greater. And what really makes this event even more enigmatic is Melchizedek's own act of receiving Abraham. He not only accepts the tithe, but offers bread and wine, a scene that would echo millennia later at a crucial moment in the history of humanity. But why bread and wine? What did this represent at that time? Centuries after the enigmatic encounter between Abraham and Melchizedek, King David writes one of the most prophetic psalms in all of the Bible. In Psalm 110, verse 4, David declares an intriguing phrase, "Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek." But who was God referring to? David, a man after God's own heart, never occupied the position of priest, and none of the Levitical priests could be called eternal priests. This means that this statement did not apply to anyone in David's time, but pointed to someone who would come in the future. Someone who, just like Melchizedek, would exercise a priesthood that did not depend on the lineage of Levi. This prophecy remained a mystery for centuries, until the New Testament revealed its definitive interpretation. The promised Messiah, Jesus Christ, did not belong to the tribe of Levi, but to the tribe of Judah. According to the law, he could not be a priest. But if the law required Levitical priests, how could Christ be called the high priest? The answer was hidden in the figure of Melchizedek. Jesus did not become a priest according to the Levitical order, but according to the order of Melchizedek, a heavenly, eternal priesthood, above the limitations of the Mosaic law. God not only established this, but swore that it would be so. This means that this priesthood could not be revoked, as it was sealed by a divine oath. But if Jesus was not from the Levitical priestly lineage and still received the title of high priest, then this raises an even deeper question. Could Jesus and Melchizedek actually be the same person? The author of the Epistle to the Hebrews makes a bold and intriguing statement about Melchizedek. In Hebrews 7:3, he writes that this mysterious king-priest was without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. But what does this mean? The first question that arises is the complete absence of genealogy. This would not be unusual in any other historical account, but in the Bible, which is meticulously detailed with lineages, this omission is alarming. No mention of his birth, death, or descendants. This not only suggests that he was different from any other priest, but also raises the possibility that he was more than just an ordinary man. The text also suggests that he abideth a priest continually. How could an ordinary man be an eternal priest? Could this mean that Melchizedek did not have a terrestrial end? Or was this a way of indicating his existence beyond time? This description fits perfectly with another figure, Jesus Christ. He is also called the eternal priest, and his ministry did not have a terrestrial origin, but a celestial one. This connection has led many scholars to consider the hypothesis that Melchizedek could have been a Christophany, a manifestation of Christ in the Old Testament before his definitive incarnation in Bethlehem. If Melchizedek and Jesus are the same person, this would change the entire perspective on his appearance to Abraham. Instead of an ordinary king-priest, Abraham would have encountered the pre-incarnate Christ, receiving blessings from him and recognizing his supremacy. But if this theory is true, what exactly was Melchizedek? An angel? The very Spirit of God in bodily form? Or could there be other explanations for this mystery? The mystery surrounding Melchizedek has sparked several theories throughout history. Some scholars have tried to identify him with well-known biblical characters, while others have seen him as a unique celestial entity. But which of these theories makes the most sense? One of the oldest hypotheses among the rabbis is that Melchizedek was Shem, the son of Noah. As one of the survivors of the flood, Shem lived for many years and could, according to some genealogical counts, still have been alive during Abraham's time. As the patriarch of the godly lineage, he could have taken on the role of priest of the Most High God. However, this theory has flaws. Shem has a recorded genealogy in the Bible, and Hebrews 7 emphasizes that Melchizedek was without father, without mother, without genealogy. Another possibility is that Melchizedek was an angel in disguise. Some theologians point to angelic appearances in the Bible, where celestial beings took on human form to interact with the patriarchs. If this were the case, Melchizedek would not have a terrestrial lineage, because in fact, he would not belong to humanity. But there is a problem with this idea. Melchizedek was called a king and ruled a real city, something that was never said about angels in Scripture. An even more intriguing theory is that Melchizedek was a manifestation of God on earth. This view is based on the fact that he carries divine titles, receives honor from Abraham, and seems to exist beyond time. If he were indeed a manifestation of Christ before his incarnation, this would mean that Jesus was already establishing his priesthood long before the cross. This explanation would make sense in light of Hebrews 7, where he is described as resembling the Son of God and as an eternal priest. Regardless of the theory one adopts, one point remains. Melchizedek was not an ordinary character. He appears in the narrative without explanation, performs a priestly function superior to that of the Levites, and disappears without a trace. But the most impressive thing is that he is not an isolated figure in biblical history. His existence points directly to Christ and to a priesthood that would replace the entire religious system of the Old Covenant. But what exactly does this mean for the work of Jesus? And how does this connection impact our faith to this day? Melchizedek's priesthood was not just an isolated event in biblical history, but a precursor to a radical change that would happen centuries later. Throughout the entire Old Testament period, the Levitical priesthood dominated the relationship between God and humanity. Only the descendants of Levi could serve in the temple, offer sacrifices, and intercede for the people. However, this priesthood was temporary, limited, and subject to human failings. But when Jesus Christ came, he was not from the tribe of Levi. He was from the tribe of Judah, which by the law disqualified him from being a priest. Yet he did not become a priest according to the lineage of Levi, but according to the order of Melchizedek. What does this mean? It means that Christ's priesthood is not based on earthly lineage, but on a heavenly and eternal authority. Like Melchizedek, Jesus is a priest forever, not because he was born into a specific tribe, but because God declared it so. This new priesthood not only replaces the Levitical one, but completely surpasses it. Instead of repetitive animal sacrifices, Christ offered a single perfect sacrifice, his own blood. Instead of an earthly temple, he ministers in the heavenly sanctuary. Instead of a priesthood limited by death, he lives and intercedes eternally for his people, and there is a detail that cannot be overlooked: the Lord's Supper. When Melchizedek met Abraham, he brought bread and wine. And what did Christ do on the night before his crucifixion? He took bread and wine and declared, "This is my body, this is my blood." The connection is undeniable. Melchizedek was pointing to something that would only be fully fulfilled in Christ. But if this priesthood is heavenly and eternal, what does it reveal to us about the future? Is there something in Melchizedek that helps us understand what is to come at the end of times? The figure of Melchizedek not only points to Christ in the past, but also sheds light on the future and the ultimate destiny of humanity. If his priesthood was eternal and superior to the Levitical priesthood, this means that he was not bound by time, but was part of a plan that spans the ages. And this plan culminates in the absolute reign of Christ at the end of times. The book of Revelation describes Jesus as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, ruling with justice and establishing a kingdom of peace. These are the same characteristics of Melchizedek, who was the King of righteousness and King of peace. Just as he ruled over Salem, the future Jerusalem, Christ will reign over the new Jerusalem, where there will be no more sin, death, or corruption. Christ's priesthood, according to the order of Melchizedek, is a heavenly and eternal priesthood. This means that, in the new heaven and the new earth, there will no longer be a need for earthly priests, because Jesus will intercede directly for his people forever. The intercession will be perfect, access to God will be complete, and the kingdom will be established without end. This connection between the beginning and the end is striking. The book of Genesis introduces us to Melchizedek as a mysterious king-priest, while the book of Revelation reveals Christ reigning as king and priest for all eternity. Everything that began in the time of Abraham will be fulfilled in the glorious return of Jesus. But this raises a final question. If Melchizedek was a foreshadowing of Christ, and his priesthood is eternal, what does this revelation mean for us today? If Melchizedek was already a mystery in the past, we now know that his story directly points to Jesus Christ and God's plan for humanity. His eternal priesthood reveals a kingdom that will never end. And if you want to keep discovering the deepest secrets of the Bible, subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and share this video, because there are many incredible revelations yet to come.